Hello, I'm Mark Baer. I'm with Elizabeth Murray. You're watching Conversations and Collaborations, and welcome.
Welcome to you.
Welcome, and we've done this before, but so I was here in the Art Walk, and that was what year? What month was that? That was September.
In September.
And then I came back. Now we're in late December, and you had an open house last week, and I walked in the room, and there was massive change. And where we're sitting, I looked at these two new paintings behind me, and I go, there's a big drama going on here. Well, no one else, he's walking around seemed to notice there was a big drama going on. But I said, there's a big drama going on in Elizabeth Murray's life because this is change.
Yeah.
What I saw, you're going someplace risky, you're getting out of your comfort zone, you're leaving some of your other paintings behind in a way. It's like, oh, these new kids are here, and every, there's all this stuff. And first of all, it is a drama. Risk and change in art are hard because you're going to leave people behind as well.
That's true.
So what's going on with you?
It's courage. And courage is connected to heart. It's connected to place. It's enough self-confidence to move forward and to open myself up. And part of that might even be my singing, to be singing on the edge, singing in Big Sur, singing in this wonderful way, finding my voice in new ways courageously, and wanting to find my own language. And, we're both writers. We both love to write.
So let's stop for a second. Let's kind of explain, because this is going to go by, oh, she's singing. Explain what's been going on with the singing. So just
I'm in the Wholehearted Choir with Lisa G. Littlebird, and half our choir is from Big Sur and half from Monterey. And for me, it is a place to really open up my heart and to find a shy voice and make it come forward. And even though I'm a public speaker, I'm really shy singer. It's helped me hold both grief and joy, which is kind of like painting, to hold fear and confidence, or like diving off the high dive. Yes, I can do it. And personal expression.
And Lisa's thing is allowing everybody to sing, and it's also coming from almost a primal and a primitive kind of place, and almost going back to what the tribal songs were, is part of what her thing is.
Well, we sing all kinds of songs, but everyone is welcome. All voices are welcome.
Yeah, it's interesting. She's doing really interesting work. So you've been doing that work.
Yeah, for a number of years, and I feel like that is helping me even with my painting and writing. To come to an authentic voice and to be able to be more comfortable with risk taking and with my own authenticity and vulnerability, which is what I am bringing to my painting.
So going from a representational style to a more of an essence of form and shape, and color, what's the surprise you're having? I mean, is this surprising you as much as anybody else?
Well, it's all about shape in the place, and I do my drawings on the land, right on the cliffs or right in Big Sur. I do all my drawings. So they're not made up shapes. And my colors, I've been sticking to the same 6 colors.
Let's talk about your rules, because it's all very Monet based and your studies with Monet. So let's break this down systematically.
Okay. So the colors I use, and if you look around the room, is tons of color. You don't think I'm shy about color. But I actually have limited myself to the 6 colors that Monet used. And so I don't use black, and so I mix everything. So all the colors have a harmony to them. They have a vibration and a harmony, which is, again, like the singing. They're all going to get along. Because they all are in the same family. They're all related. And when I do that, I learn my language better, and the colors will come to me during my sleep. So there becomes fluency when I'm mixing, and they'll talk to me, and I'll have conversations with the paintings and ask them what they need or what they want. Sounds odd, but I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And also I listen to a lot of poetry or spiritual things when I'm paint. Or sometimes I'm singing when I'm painting. So I bring in this heart and this language that I'm trying to reach.
So you're doing a dance, basically.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think of painting as a physical act. It's there's a lot of physicality.
Yeah, there is.
And then by the time you get to it, there shouldn't be much thinking going on. You should be entering that other world.
Well, I think it's a both and. There's a response.
Yeah.
Just like if you have a really good dance partner,
Yeah.
you know the steps, but you also are in response. And it's interesting right now. If doing these big paintings, I open up my garage door and I paint outside, and my little dog comes with me, but also I have this communication with these animals outside. So there's like a little black squirrel that comes to visit and watches painting this painting. This squirrel was watching me paint, and then 4 deer come up and they're watching me paint. It's kind of cool, it's kind of amazing.
So before we head on, let's just give our viewer a little bit of where we are.
This was Charles Rollo Peters' home, known as Peters Gate, and he built this home in 1900, and he had 30 acres, so many people know Peters Gate as part of Monterey. And when the 1906 earthquake happened in San Francisco, and all these friends of his, all these artists, lost everything, kind of like the fires we're experiencing today, he invited them down here, and he added on to this house and to a studio behind me, and he added 2 cottages and said, well, let's all live here and paint. And what do? You also have to sell your work. So they started an all California artist gallery at the old Del Monte, now the Navy Postgraduate School, in the tea room. And then they'd come back to this room and have like a salon, have a party, have poets like George Sterling and writers like Jack London read their manuscripts, and have the wealthy come up in a horse and buggy from
Del Monte Hotel.
Yeah, and come here, most beautiful hotel in the world, have these parties, drink wine, meet the artists, have good discussions like we're having, things that are meaningful, and fall in love and buy the art.
So you're part of a tradition, and Charles Rollo Peters, when I was at the museum, I had a chance to dig one out and live with it. So
good.
He's primarily known for his nocturnes.
Yes.
And these beautiful Monterey nocturnes.
Yes.
So it's so interesting, and that your work certainly is in that heritage. Coming out of the August Gay was part of that group.
Yeah.
There was some really fabulous art that came out of that time, and you're certainly in that tradition. But you're also in the Monet tradition. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's interesting that Charles Rollo Peters was a nocturne and used very dark colors.
Yeah.
And somber more. What do they call that? I forgot the name of that. And then there was 3 women painters from Monterey, McCormick being one, who went to Giverny, fell in love with the whole impressionist.
Evelyn McCormick, I believe.
Evelyn
Yes,
McCormick,
yes.
yeah, thank you. And fell in love with the beautiful quality of light, came back to Monterey, and what I say, brought back the light. And so with all these darker
And then
paintings.
E. Charlton Fortune is part of that group also,
Yes,
I believe.
yes, absolutely. So I feel like me going to Giverny and starting to work there in 1985 has been an enormous influence in my life of light and color and nuance, beauty, and I, of course, photograph it and paint it.
Again, just because we know who you are, but you're also as much known as for your garden work and your work in the garden, and as your artwork. So you've combined these two things, which was perfect in Monet's gardens.
Yeah.
So and by this time in your life, those things are not two things; they're kind of one thing. The art and the garden has become almost a unified system.
Yes, absolutely.
But now you're kind of you've had Monet as a muse.
Yes.
But now you're seeking you're kind of, sometimes you have to leave your muse. You keep something, but you leave something.
I think when you're well educated, like your parents educate you or your life educates you, when you have grown your roots, you've been fed well by inspiration. You don't have to repeat that. You hopefully can express from your experience. It's like what has informed me, what has helped raise me. When I bring people to Giverny, to Monet's garden, I get a lump in my throat a lot of times because I feel like I'm introducing them to my family, to what has raised me.
And you do that trip almost every year, don't you?
I do.
And you take groups. Let's talk a little bit about that so people know if they want to come, that they can come.
Yeah. I bring 2 small groups a year. One this coming year, I'll bring a group in early June and one in September. So they'll be able to choose if they want to come to the spring, which is incredible, or to the autumn, which is also beautiful. Yeah, and that's to photograph and paint and to learn about the gardens.
But that brings us back to now you're kind of heading somewhere else, and this is somewhere else, and it was just and it's going, and this isn't the last stop.
No,
This is heading into again another world of reduction.
It's been putting maybe more of, when we get a little bit more abstract. It is a little bit more confidence in who we are and what the place is that's inspiring us. I'm just trying to put more of myself into a place. And I will never be an impressionist painter. And even though I love painting outdoors and I love painting on the cliffs or in the garden, I'm not going to be a regular plein air painter. And we have magnificent ones here.
And yours has always been also an interior search, and that requires a different skill set.
Exactly.
You're bringing the outside there, and then now what it's looked like filtered through your interior, and that's kind of, I think, what the process is. I think we're going to break here, and we'll be back. I'm Mark Baer. You're watching Conversations and Collaborations, and I'm with Elizabeth Murray, and we'll be back in one moment. You are watching Conversations and Collaborations. For all episodes, go to markdavidbaer.com. Hello, I'm Mark Baer. I'm with Elizabeth Murray. You're watching Conversations and Collaborations. This is the second part of our interview. We're talking about new work. We're talking about risk, change, growth, the fear of new work, and the euphoria of it. And I think I'm going to start us here because we're on your property, and down the hill there, you're building a new studio.
God willing.
And you're committed for the next 30 years, the next big act of your life, to painting. So you don't want to, the artist can fall into the trap where he can do something pleasing, and he can have an audience, and they'll buy your work, and you want to please that audience, and you'll keep doing that work. And that's just kind of the worst trap in the world, because there's no surprise. Once you've known how to kind of do something, you can do it. And going into new space means that you can leave people behind. You can. There's no certainty that anybody is going to like what you do, and there's this high wire act where you don't know what it is,
or what comes next, or where you are,
or where it comes next. Yeah. But if you want to paint for your life, you have to. That is a constant dance. It's all about the new. It's all about the reinvention. It's all about the possibility of what happens on these little square campuses with your 6 colors.
Thank you for bringing up this dream of mine. It's part of it, living here in Charles Rolla Peters' old house and having done all this restoration, 9,000 pounds of steel in the very ceiling we're in, is about me painting for the next 30 years, God willing. You know, right here, right, knock on wood, awaken the tree spirits, have them stand behind me. And so, yeah, part of my dream is to build my new big studio. And what I want to be able to do there is to paint some very large paintings like Monet's Water Lilies, but mine will be maybe the Grand Canyon, the walls of the canyons, or something that is sense of place that from my place, the cliffs around here, the feeling of being on the edge of the sea and the land, the wild garden, the wild garden. This, I like the wild and the cultivated, but that idea of risk and North Star, where are we going to? Where are we right now in this moment, and where do we want to go? Sort of that both and that spiritual quest, creativity as a spiritual act, an act of risk, an act of great creativity, and where you're always kind of in fear a bit because you're on the edge. There's no formulas, there's no recipe. Maybe you have some skill after all these years, some familiarity with the colors, and a little bit on application. I like to paint outdoors, and I do wax and oil. So sometimes it starts to melt on me. It's a hot day, and I'm like, oh my God, it's starting to melt. You know, things change. It's a moving discovery.
But it is like I said when I walked in, I go, wow, there's a drama going on. And it is a drama, and it is internal. I mean, it's very dramatic when you're going through this situation. In your head.
Yeah.
You're going, what is this? Can I do it with shape? Can I do it with this?
Yeah.
How is this? How am I reinventing myself? Because it's more than reinventing something. You know, this is just the kind of the record of it. But you're going through a real, you know, this is hard to explain, but you're going through a real physical adventure in your mind to see the world in a different way. To paint the world in a different way, you have to see the world in a different way, which means that you have to shift your kaleidoscope a bit, and you have to shift everything around. You have to go to that new place. Well, that's, you know, so it's a big adventure.
It is.
You know, it's not. Oh, I just
appreciate that you
didn't
get
change
it.
your style last week. You know,
No.
it's like it's a bigger adventure than that.
That's right.
And I know the euphoria of that you know that your experiences, but it is also terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying.
You know, there's this big risk. First of all, you have to sell your work, so so there's risk of alienation.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think for me at this point, it's like falling in love. And that's part of my work, is to fall in love with my place, fall in love with my work, fall in love every day. So if there's so much risk in that.
Yeah.
And if you're being authentic, you're not being fake, then there's vulnerability, and then you're really kind of scared, because if people don't like your work, they don't like you, and all of a sudden you're like, ah. But there's also an edge, and there's an edge that can be rooted into your own authenticity. And as we get older, which is a good thing, getting more belief in ourselves, more rootedness. And then you just go, well, I got to do it this way. I can't do it fake. I can't do it just to sell.
And the more confidence, the looser you can be. Everything works in opposites.
Yeah.
You know, the more confident, the more rooted, the more second nature, the rougher, the more unfinished. You don't have to, you don't need the polish, you don't need the finish, you don't need the, it's can I do this in fewer strokes? Can I do it with less? How do, you want your articulation to be clearer, but you don't want to overdo anymore.
You don't have to second guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Or try to be pleasing. You know, God only knows. It's a lot of responsibility to try to be pleasing. You know, because there's certain things that are easily, you know, there's things that are easily pleasing to people, to an audience, because first of all, art's kind of a luxury anymore. It's not not a lot of people take the time to learn. It's not something that, oh, gee, I know what I like. It's not about that. It takes for people to be involved in the art conversation, you have to know some things to get the most out of it. So
do you mean you think it's a luxury to own, to make, or to even be educated?
I think just to
about
know
it,
anything
familiar
about it, to even be able to look at a piece of art.
Yeah.
And the more challenging it is, it requires somebody to say, oh, I see that how they got there. I see where that fits in. I see the conversation that she's involving herself in. I see the history that she's steeping herself in. You know, it's not out of your just little box of crayons. This comes out of a whole tradition.
Right.
And let's talk about belonging to a tribe. That's because you and the community are, you know, that's a big part of, community is a big part of what you do.
It is. Well, I feel really wealthy I feel one of my great wealths is my friendships, and that's my community. And one of my great wealth is having ideas, lots and lots of ideas, and to be an inspirator, you know, to inspire others. And for my tribe, I feel like ever since I was a kid, I had multiple tribes that they didn't necessarily get along, but I love diversity. So I have my whole tribe that's in my singing, you know, and they're from 12 to 92, and all different kinds of people. And that's with Wholehearted Choir. And then I have my tribe that are more writers, you know, or ones that are more art and creative, or the garden people, international garden people, or like my brother, tribal arts. What is it? The travelers, the creators, the makers, you know, the spiritual people. People are really into rainforest or visionary arts or meditation, all these different kinds of things that feed me, you know, and hopefully I make a contribution to as well. And children, you know, being able to be with children or animals. So my community here, Monterey community, to me has always been something that is a wonderful scale. We are surrounded by beauty. We have a lot of depths of spirituality. We're the language capital of the world, so we have all this diversity of people and language and interests and worldviews right here. And a lot of arts, a big history of art. And that's one thing I love. I love being able to talk to you, Mark. I love that you bring, you know, your perspective and your commitment and your own authentic art making.
This is part of the artist's job, and you know why art matters, and what the role of the artist is bigger than self, and not for everybody, but again, I know in my work and in your work, we've got a personal part of it that's for our own growth and understanding, and you know, for me, working through the unconscious to find things that I'd never find on my own, and again, you tend to be on that same kind of search through this creative process. But there's also, here we are in a community with an art history.
Yeah.
That someone either cheers it on and talks about it and collects it and puts it and informs people about it and preserves it,
Right.
and becomes part of it, of that tradition and local history, or that doesn't happen. I mean, you know, histories can get lost as easily as they can get found.
Yes. And I think along with preserving our old histories, which we are rich in here, is also to really, which you do really well, is to bring out the current artists, like who's doing work today. so that it's not just a history based on the past, but it's like, how do we keep vibrancy?
It's certainly not about them. They were here. They did their deal. They're gone. We're here now, and there's a lot of great stuff that going on here that could have easily be just as interesting or more interesting than the past. It's always about the now, and the now is a very interesting time here. Although it needs to be, it does have to have this community component where artists are talking with artists.
Yeah.
You've set this up very much as a salon. You've used your house as a salon. It's important that artists do communicate with artists, that artists are encouraged,
Yeah.
that that new work is encouraged, that you're encouraged to, it's pretty easy. I don't want to say it's pretty easy to be here and do plein air or representational, because there's a lot that goes on, and it's a beautiful place, so it's a natural place for that. But people also need to be encouraged to do art that's also in line with what's going on in the rest of the country and world.
Yeah.
And
new perspectives. Like a young friend of mine, has a show at the Monterey Museum right now, Chloe Wilson, and she's doing these small nocturnes with a little house, a modern house with a light inside, and then this beautiful blue sky, but all these wires and telephone poles, everything that I wouldn't want. But hers are beautiful, and they're very modern. They're very much today, and yet they have a good nod to the old nocturnes. And
I've seen her work at Carmel Art Association.
Yes, she's the youngest person.
So
that got
funny. I
invited.
walked in there, and all that stuff in that building, and I found one of her little pieces. I walked right up to it. So it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny how art will stand out.
Yeah, I've known her since she's a little girl.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she is awesome. And
Yeah.
so that's the youth that, being nurtured by YAC, Youth Arts Collective, but it's the new vision of doing things well and being the young artists that us older ones can mentor, but it's also the current history and the currency of seeing the beauty around us in new eyes in different ways.
Mark Baer, Elizabeth Murray, you're watching Conversations and Collaborations, and that's it for a day.